What is sampling? Usually, a researcher generally takes a small portion of the population for study, which is referred to as a sample. The process of selecting a sample from the population is called sampling. Now, usually what happens is a researcher wants to study a phenomenon existing in the entire population. So for him, it becomes practically impossible to gather the parameters of the entire population. So to simplify things, the researcher takes a small portion of the population, okay, and tries to study the parameters, the characteristics, and the features of that small portion of the population. And once that study is accomplished, he tries to map the parameters of the sample with the parameters of the population. So this entire process is called sampling. Now, why do we do sampling, or why is sampling is essential? That's quite simple. That is, sampling saves time. Rather than studying the entire population, if I do my study on a small portion of this population, that definitely saves a lot of time. Sampling also saves money. We quite often say time is money. So if I'm able to save time, I'm also saving money. Okay, but in literal sense as well, we can definitely save a lot of money if we go ahead with sampling. Then when the research process is destructive in nature, sampling minimizes the destruction. Now let us say if I have to test a bomb, would I drop the bomb on the entire population to see the effectiveness of the bomb? The destruction would be large scale. Rather than dropping the bomb on the population, I can drop that same bomb on a small deserted or maybe uninhabited island, or maybe an island where the population is quite small, in order to reduce the destruction. Okay, so sampling is important in that aspect as well. Then sampling broadens the scope of the study in light of scarcity of resources. All resources are scarce, and in order to optimize those scarce resources and to broaden the scope of the study, we can go ahead with sampling. Similarly, it has been noticed that sampling provides more accurate results as compared to census, because in sampling, non-sampling errors can be controlled more easily. There are a lot of non-sampling errors. For example, the way we analyze the data, while we report the data, while we are simply punching in the data, a lot of errors could occur. But when sampling is done, since it's a small size, such kind of errors could be minimized. And moreover, when I go ahead with census, what am I doing is I am catering to the entire population, and when I am doing the same study on the entire population, by the time I finish the entire study, a lot of changes occur in the population. And when such changes occur in the population, and when I publish my results, a lot of things could have changed. So the accuracy of census is quite obscure. Then in most cases, complete census is not possible, and hence sampling is the only option left. That's quite obvious. Okay, then these are the 5 steps in the sampling design process. The step 1, that is define your target population. Step 2, you must define your sampling frame. Step 3, appropriate sampling techniques must be selected. Step 4, sample size must be determined. Step 5, sampling process must be executed. So this entire flow is quite self-explanatory, but I would like to discuss each and every step in great detail. Step 1, you have to design the sampling process. In that, the first step should be you have to define your target population. So who should be your target population? So target population is the collection of objects which possesses the information required by the researcher and about which an inference is to be made. Now let us say if I want to make a research, or if I want to do a research on the mobile phone users in Delhi. Okay, so if I want to make a study on the mobile phone users in the city of Delhi, So my target population can easily be defined as the mobile phone users in the city of Delhi. Okay. Similarly, the next step, that is sampling frame, must be determined. Now, when I am talking about the sampling frame, it becomes quite important that I have to understand what my sampling frame is. Now, sampling frame is a published list, a directory, a map, a data. Okay, it can simply be the sensex also. Okay, any of such published results could become my sampling frame. Okay, if I read what is written on the slide, a researcher takes a sample from a population list, directory, map, city directory, or any other source used to represent the population. Likewise, I was giving you the example of the mobile phone users in the city of Delhi. If it is possible, I can simply, take the data from the cellular phone operators, or I can also, if possible, extract the data from the trie. Okay, so that can become my sampling frame. Then my sampling design process, step 3. Appropriate sampling techniques must be selected. Now, when I am selecting the appropriate sampling technique, I have to be careful to look into what kind of technique is required. Am I going for a non-probabilistic technique, or I am going for a probabilistic technique, or am I going for a replacement or a technique without replacement? So what is the technique that I need to follow? Okay, so whatever the research requirements are, or the objectives of your research are, you have to select an appropriate technique. Then step 4, sample size must be determined. What is the appropriate size? The researcher has to be very clear about that as well. Then sampling process must be executed. This is the final step where we go ahead with sampling. Okay, then random versus non-random sampling. Now, what do we understand by this? Random sampling, as also known as probabilistic sampling, and non-random sampling is again non-probabilistic sampling. In random sampling, the probability or the chance of every element in the population is the same. That is, each unit of the population has the same probability or chance of being selected as part of the sample. That is to say, if I pick a few students, I need to pick a few students in the class. I randomly put their roll numbers in a bowl and I pick 5 students randomly. That is, I can say every student had the equal opportunity or chance to get selected. Okay, so such kind of a selection becomes random sampling. And in case of non-random sampling, I'm using some other parameters, I'm using some other ways in which the samples could be selected. That could be my judgment, my familiarity, anything. Okay, so what is happening is every element doesn't have the equal opportunity to get selected. That is what is non-random sampling. Okay, so if you put this way, these are the various sampling techniques. One is random sampling methods, the other is non-random sampling methods. In random sampling, I have simple random sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, systematic sampling, multi-stage sampling. Okay, and in non-random sampling, I have quota sampling, convenience sampling, judgment sampling, and snowball sampling. We'll discuss each method in detail. Let's move ahead. Simple random sampling, that is the same as random sampling, where each member of the population has an equal opportunity or chance or probability of getting included in the sample. Okay, and stratified sampling. Now, what is happening is, understand this very carefully. From the population, we divide the population into various groups. Okay, the elements or members within each group are homogeneous, and one group is entirely different from the other group. Such groups are called strata. Okay, now then what does the researcher do is, the researcher uses simple random sampling methods to select the sample from each of the strata. Okay, now each group then becomes a stratum. Now in stratified random sampling, stratum should be relatively homogeneous and the strata should contrast with each other. That's what I told you in the beginning. That is, the elements within the strata should be homogeneous, whereas one strata should be entirely contrasting to that of the other strata. Okay, then what I'm talking about, you can see now. This is matriculate, this is one strata, this is graduate, this is another strata, this is postgraduate, this is another strata. Okay, now what you can see is matriculate is entirely different from graduate, graduate is different from postgraduate. So there is heterogeneity among these three, but within the matriculate box there is homogeneity. Okay, within the graduate box there is homogeneity, and within postgraduate there is homogeneity. Okay, now what we try to do is, that's very important, when we pick samples from in this manner, that is in a stratified manner, the sample extracted from a population should have matriculates, graduates and postgraduates in the similar proportion as they exist in the population. This is very important. The proportion of matriculates, graduates and postgraduates, that is the proportion of each strata in the sample, should be the same as that in the original population. Okay, now cluster or area sampling. In cluster sampling, what we do is we divide the population into various clusters. In this, what happens is the elements within the cluster are heterogeneous, but one cluster is more or less homogeneous to the other cluster. So that's the basic difference between stratified sampling and cluster sampling. Okay, can you observe the difference? Here the clusters are homogeneous. In the previous stratified sampling, the clusters were heterogeneous among each other. Now in cluster sampling, the elements within each cluster are heterogeneous, whereas the elements within each strata in stratified sampling were homogeneous. Okay, now
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.